Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Nancy Drew. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So obviously, we're in the aftermath of knowing exactly what Temperance is up to. The fact is that she has Lev, and obviously tracking him down is going to be pretty hard, so obviously, the team is kind of splitting up and going different places. I love that Ace wanted to go with Nancy, but then Agent Parker's like, I'll go along with you two. And it's like, cool, because Nancy's kind of been avoiding him. She even admits it later on, which, to be fair, is very like Nancy, kind of like diving into work and not really. It's like, right, she's in this awkward position because there's things between her and Park, but then like Ace dropped this like truth bomb on her like the night before, so it's a lot. So she has to decide. Well, she's still in that in-between space. And it seemed like Park early on seemed like he knew what was on, because he was basically talking to her at one point like, oh yeah, kind of like something familiar in front of you can kind of draw your attention. So it was almost like, oh, it's like he already knew about Ace. He was almost like, yeah, it's easier to fall for something that seems familiar, that's right in front of you. Like, Ace has been around you a lot longer than I have. Like, you guys have been friends for a while longer, so you guys work together and stuff too. So it seemed like he was kind of planting that seed like pretty early on. But no matter where they looked, they couldn't find Temperance. I do like the reveal that she was using a liminal space. I thought that was kind of an interesting thing, like how she's able to just pop in and out just whenever she. It makes me wonder. Oh, I was about to say like, because she never really directly disappeared from anywhere. Because anywhere she went, she did walk. But it's like she doesn't have the power to just like pop in and out of a liminal space on her own. That's why she needed a Hudson and a Marvin. But like when they made that connection with her, like, right, she's like, oh, like I knew something was up the moment she was like, oh yeah, our blood is tied together now. I'm like, that seems super suspicious, but it's like, right, basically having Marvin and a Hudson supercharger. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, hell, she basically used Nancy's blood to turn back into herself instead of being quote unquote Myrtle anymore anyway, so it makes sense that blood would rejuvenate her in a way, but, you know, that was at the time when they still needed to work with her, especially if it meant saving Ace and Hannah. But now she's able to pop in and out of the liminal space whenever she wants to. It is a really good hiding space, which actually, that in itself actually makes the opening that much more depressing, realizing, because I guess it didn't correlate in my head when we saw like her as Myrtle confronting those kids about like, oh, you stole something from me? You're not going to give it back? Well, your life on this plane of existence is foregone. And she made them disappear. Well, it's just like, yeah, even if you were able to save those kids, they disappeared in 71. That probably would have been like complicated bringing them back. But we saw that Temperance and Ace had a time limit being inside of that place, because it takes about 2 weeks before that place is like, nope, you can't be in here anymore because you're going to die. All those kids died long ago, which is heartbreaking, which is super depressing to think about. Like, but that's just Temperance for you. It's like, cool. I love that. It's like, cool, you're not going to help me. You're not going to give me what I want. You stole something from me. Oh, well, I can wait. I've been alive for a long time. I'll find a way and circle back around to this when the time comes when someone else will find it for me. But I love that. It's just like, man, that's just a dick move, killing a whole bunch of kids like that. I guess, like, the argument is, well, I didn't do it directly. I sent them somewhere for them to die, you know, so it's kind of out of my hands. But she directly and indirectly killed a whole bunch of kids. It's like, Jesus, that sucks. She stabs Darlene because Darlene's helping them translate those antlers that they found, because they're a piece to all of this puzzle. Because they found the one that Temperance had hidden at, Icarus Hall, and then there was the one that was at the orphanage that was hidden away because she never found it in all those years, so. I mean, like, and I think that's the point of something, like, right, you're never going to, like, for one, it's like, why would you be able to look there? Like, you're not, she was just probably like, I don't know, maybe at that point she didn't have the other antler, but she decided, like, maybe in that time she was able to find it, so. I don't know, I just think it's interesting. But it's also that thing of, like, right, when something's right in front of you, you're not going to see it. Which actually fits with the whole, her hiding in the liminal space, but that's a little different considering, like, you literally can't see the liminal space. Granted, those in the liminal space can see into this world, so. But we got a little bit more insight in what it is exactly she needs by bringing all 4 pieces of Charity Soul together. So at some point she hid a key inside of her own daughter's soul, which I guess upon finding out about that, as well as what her mom actually had planned, Charity was like, nah, screw that. I'm not going to be a part of that. That is like, I wonder why specifically Charity's soul. Like, I guess like, right, for whatever she's trying to do, it needs a sacrifice, like a very Thanos and Gamora type of thing. Like maybe it's something of that nature where it's kind of almost like, right, you have to make a sacrifice for the soul stone. It has to be something important to you. Just like the whole Natasha and Clint thing to some extent. Maybe something of that ilk was used in this particular instance. And that's why Charity's soul has to be the one housing whatever key it is that she needs to unlock the seal between this veil of life and darkness. Like, that's why I'm like, because at first she made it seem, well, because I think the veil she's trying to cross is what she's going to need to fully bring all of Charity's soul together and bring her back to this plane of existence. But I think it is also about whatever is sealed down below. I don't know whether it's like bringing all four pieces together breaks the seal that she needs to get to whatever's there. Or because I think the way she explained it to Nick is that seal leads to what she needs to, that kind of boundary between life and death that will allow her to bring Charity's soul back. Obviously, also at the heart of this story, too, is the situation. Obviously, Nick is kind of worried about the kids. He was kind of told not to tell anyone or the hex would activate. But Bess is kind of suspicious of how he was acting, and it ended up coming out. And because of that, the hex activated. So Bess doing everything she can to try and find out what hex it was. And I thought it was so interesting that it's kind of like a middle finger from Temperance, because she wants to keep them as preoccupied as possible. So she ended up using a hex that could be a number of other hexes. And so Bess was able to narrow it down to 4, but then Nick was in such a rush to save the kids because he's like, right, they're my responsibility. They're only in this situation because Temperance wanted to use them against me, so their lives are only in danger because of me. I wanted to help them. In turn, I ended up putting them in a dangerous situation. You could kind of tell it wasn't going to be the first one Nick picked, just because, like, right, you're not that lucky, but also like him saying, like, right, one of the kids has a headache, but then Bess was like, yeah, but the rest don't. That's the problem. Like, he jumped at one symptom, he's like, oh, it's got to be this. It's like, you can tell, like, right, unless it's a symptom that they all immediately share, if one's got a headache and one doesn't, because he's trying to justify, like, oh, the others probably are like, they're trying to act tough, they're trying to act like nothing is as bad by pretending like they're okay. It ended up backfiring because they ended up, I guess, because that's also bad because you don't know, like, how this, well, we saw how it responded by picking the wrong hex, I guess, using the cure for the wrong medicine, the wrong medicine for an illness could end up aggravating the illness even more. So you always have to be careful about that. And they ended up aggravating the curse even more by picking the wrong one. So obviously they were a little out of their depth in this case. So they ended up calling on Park, Ace, and Nancy's help to figure it out. So obviously narrowing it down from obviously Park being the FBI agent that he was able to profile her being the narcissist that she is, and that actually helped in many different departments. It allowed them to figure out, like, what she actually used, because obviously whatever curse it was something from the earth which she manipulated in the area because the kids are outside playing all the time. There's that, but it also was able to narrow down, like, where she actually was hiding, because it's like, right, whatever place she's hiding has got to be a place that we wouldn't be just posted up waiting for her outside of. Plus, it had to be somewhere that she could, like, bounce, like, there being multiple exits anytime she needs to leave. So I didn't talk about it either, but they did bring it up in this episode that probably also because of that blood ritual. I'm assuming she can track Bess as well, but she doesn't need to. She always needs to know where Nancy is because Nancy's important to everything that's going on. So that's why she ended up finding out they were at Darlene's and was able to remove her from that so she wouldn't help them figure things out, because that's what bothers Nancy the most, is that no matter what they do, Temperance is always 2 steps ahead of them. She always has been. The fact is that Nancy, as a detective of the team, it's like, I got duped. And it's like, yeah, but she played on your maternal instincts. Like, obviously, like, a mother caring about her daughter. Like, she knew that would be the necessary thing to manipulate you with, because she knows about your, obviously, like, complications between, like, you know, her losing her mom. Like, of course, like, it would make Nancy a little bit more sympathetic and, you know, empathetic towards Temperance's situation with her own daughter, you know? best way to handle the curse though is they can't reverse it. Only person who can, which Temperance isn't going to do that. But I thought it was interesting where it's like, right, if we put all the curses in me, Temperance isn't going to have any choice but to reverse it because she needs me. She can't let me die. And so I guess because of that blood connection, like, she immediately was able to tell well, because we did see those flowers. So I guess either those are tied to the curse or maybe those are specifically tied to Nancy's life. And it's like, right, she saw those flowers. It's like, damn it, I guess that was her her way to really know if Nancy's ever in trouble, if something's really bad. Like, it could be symbolic of that, but maybe it's just representative of the curse. It's just, she ended up, like, spilling her own blood on those flowers and it ended up restoring them. So I guess those are specifically tied to the curse. But it would be interesting if that was more so like, no, this lets me know what Nancy's status is and whether or not she's okay or not. There was also the interesting development of the Nancy and Park situation where they kind of had that talk about their respective situation. It's like, cool, like us as friends. And he's like, right. He's like, basically for any long-term relationship, maybe it is best that you kind of start off as friends, and kind of hinting towards Acing. And she's like, oh, like, what's this about my relationship with Ace? And he's like, I never said anything about Ace. And they're kind of laughing because she's like, you're good at kind of getting that out of him. But like, I think from the beginning he kind of sensed and felt that, because even Ace talked to her about like, right, like, I'm going to be here whenever you are done avoiding, because he's like, I know I threw a lot on you last night by telling you the truth, but he's like, I don't regret it. The fact of the matter is, whatever you decide to do, like, whenever you are ready to, you know, kind of talk to me about this, I'm here, whatever may be the aftermath of this, you know. So it seems like by kind of making things what they are between her and Park, it seems like she made her choice at the end of it all. Obviously, it's sad that at the end of the day, though, that kind of along that main line, that Lev ended up dying. Poor guy. Like, you knew it was, you know, being the third of four pieces is like, you knew it was always going to come down to that fourth piece, but it's still just sad. They're like, oh man, Lev was such a good guy. Like, they were not one step ahead. Well, it felt like they were one step ahead. Like, they promised to protect him, but you knew that was all going to blow up in their faces. But I'm actually somewhat surprised that it stretched out as long as it did. I'm surprised it didn't turn out. They're like, oh, I'm going to kill you sooner. But now we get why, though. Because I was wondering, like, so Temperance isn't actually going to kill them herself. Like, the only way she's going to be able to, she needs the, Copperhead to actually collect the souls themselves. I guess, like, his process of freezing their chest, ripping out their hearts, it's the only way to activate I guess it's the only way to keep the part of Charity's soul active in them, maybe. So, like, if any ritual or anything that she does to try and do it won't preserve Charity's soul, either it will, like, immediately move on to someone else type of thing, or it's kind of being indicative of just, like, it's part of, like, the curse of, like, I can't actually interfere directly because they set this whole thing up so that I never could, so she needs to indirectly use the Copperhead to do all this. Because she is putting a tracker on it, so now it's like, right, I put a tracker on your heart so that the next time we get to it makes it easier so she doesn't have to do all the tracking herself, but now she'll be able to track the Copperhead when it eventually finds the fourth and final person. So I'm assuming, like, in that moment, when the fourth heart is presented, she'll step in, remove the Copperhead from the equation, because the moment it puts all four of their pieces, their soul together, it's going to wipe out Charity's soul. So she's trying to prevent that, obviously, so she can get what she needs. But I'm curious to see how that really gets played out when she does eventually track down the Copperhead to the fourth victim, which we do get that revealed in this episode who it is. Oh, it's Ace. Kind of comes as no surprise. I kind of figured that's where they were going to go, because of course it's like, right, the two people who are so important to this situation, the final piece to Charity's soul is in Ace. Nancy is important to Temperance's spell, and now this also makes it even more dire, because, like, right, we got to go above and beyond, because, like, right, protecting people before was, like, always important. That's why they want to protect Lev, obviously. Like, we don't want anyone to die, even more so when it's like, cool, this crew of ours is constantly in this situation of, like, if it ain't Nancy almost dying, if it isn't George dying, being resurrected, and having her lifespan shortened because there's another soul inside of hers, or now potentially Ace is about to have his heart frozen and ripped out because another person's soul is in it. Like, if it's not one thing or another, this group is always going through a pretty rough time. So That's definitely going to be interesting going forward. But some other elements in this episode I thought was kind of interesting is George keeping both Carson and Ryan busy. And I thought it was interesting because Ryan references, like, he never knew his uncle, the one that, Josiah, the one that his dad killed. But it's like, right, he's like, from a young age, I remember my uncle telling me about the curse. He was like, hoping that I wouldn't be a victim to it. And it's like, oh, that's kind of messed up to tell a kid, which even Ryan's like, yeah. It's like, and because it's like, right, you can't, like, there's always going to be, like, a brutal way things end for those related to the Hudsons. And now you're kind of worried, like, well, what does that mean for Nancy considering everything going on? What does that mean for Ryan? Like, I hope that doesn't mean she ends up losing him throughout all of this. Maybe he ends up sacrificing himself for her sake. I don't know. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope both of them are able to kind of make it out of this okay and all right. But the fact is they're setting that up. Plus, there's the whole, like, Ryan's testimony about putting his dad away because of everything, so that's definitely going to be interesting. Like, that continues to be this background thing, but I wonder, is that going to come to the forefront, like, pretty soon, or is that just going to continue being a background thing? We'll see. I mean, because obviously the Hudson family is tied up in all of this, obviously Temperance herself, obviously, but I did like that George was meant to keep them out of her Nancy's hair, which I love that eventually Carson figured it out, because it's like, cool, that's 3 things that George fan gave us for free. It's like, George ain't about that. She's running a business, and she would make that pretty clear. So it's like, cool, where is Nancy? And Ryan's just accepting. He's like, oh, cool, thanks. Yeah, where is Nancy? It's like, all right, she wants you out of her hair. It's like, okay, she's just fact-finding something. It's like, cool. Ryan's like, hey, she's not running into a nail bomb infected trap real place, so it's progress. She's just fact-checking some stuff, so it's not as bad. So... But I also love that George is dealing with a complication of her own, because she's still pretending to her siblings that her and Nick are still together, because she doesn't want to throw a wrench in all of that. Because it's like, right, things are good, and she's promising to, like, tell them the truth. And actually it was Ryan that actually gave her the advice, which she's kind of like, obviously with their history, I'm sure she's reluctant to listen to his advice, but it's also like, no, he's like, my family never told me everything, and it just made me a little resentful, because it made me think, like, oh, they didn't trust me, they didn't think I was mature enough to be able to handle whatever the truth is. So tell your siblings the truth. And even him being like, see, the truth is actually pretty good, you might as well continue down this route. So, because I love that, I believe it was Charlie was like, hey, so I need help with a science project. Like, no, this sister thing. And it's like, no, we should get this particular vehicle. Why? Oh, because it's Nick's favorite. No, how about this? All 4 fangirls. It's like, no, how about 3 fangirls? And Nick is like, wait, which 3? It's like, you should know. I love that, because I guess it's like, nah, we're going to go hang out with Nick. You get kind of left behind. It seemed like it's what she was indicating. So George sits down and talks to her siblings. And I think it was... Charlie was the one, I think, that said, what did you do? Well, no, one of them said, like, wait, does Nick not like me? I think it was either Ted or Charlie. And then the other one was like, what did you do? I was like, that's kind of heartbreaking that's the first thing you say is like, what did you do? And this is what she was afraid of. It's like, because their moms had a rotator of men in their lives, now they're kind of assuming, like, cool, especially because George feels that mother role, so they're like, oh, especially her being like a mom to them too, it's like, oh, you're just like mom. Like, just when we find someone cool that we like, that we want to accept into the family, you boot them, like, so, like, you know, Charlie's under impression, like, no, this is your fault, you did something. And it's like, you know, like, Nick's never going to come around again. It's like, no, Nick's always going to be a big part of your lives. He likes you very much. Like, we're still friends and everything. And I thought that was so interesting, because, once again, understandable, because from their perspective, it's like, any type of person that, you know, it's like, right, we've had to always deal with the rotating people in Victoria's life of like, cool, when we got close to someone, it's like, it didn't matter because that mom booted that person, so it's like, what was the point? You know, and like, oh, now we open ourselves up, like, yeah, Nick is awesome and everything, he always has been, but now he was even closer to them because, like, cool, he was going to be family, and now it is a situation of this happened. And obviously, Jesse's the one that handles it the most, the best, considered being the oldest, because she's always kind of had to handle things a little bit more. I think just like George had to be like the one that kind of had to step up and grow up a little quicker, so did Jesse, because Jesse's the one that found out about George's circumstances first and foremost, the blood bucket, the whole Odette situation. She was always the one that kind of found out a little faster than the others. So I even love that, like, Charlie was like, trust broken, and then George was texting her back, like, come back, and it's like, she blocked me? How'd she do that fast? How did she even But then Jesse was like, it's going to be okay. She's like, I hated you at one point in time. I was like, this is a great pep talk. It's like, no, like, you burned the food and everything, and everyone was yelling at you. I was pissed. Because I think George referenced that at one point in time. Or maybe I think Jesse ended up referencing that at one point in time. I don't remember. I do feel like that particular incident that she referenced this time was something that did come up before. And so she said at the time, like, I was lashing out at you, but it's just because mom was going for a really, really long time. Like I said, you were the worst sister. But obviously, that was years ago. I eventually got over it because I know how much you care about us, that everything's going to be okay. And despite how they're acting right now, everything's going to be okay with Charlie. Like, she's going to forgive you. Like, everything's going to work out. Like, just give it time. It's like, oh, when did you become such a grown-up? I thought that was a sweet moment between them. Which, speaking of Nick, he's in a very complicated space right now because he's like, right, it was almost my fault, the reason why the kids got sick. He's like, if I had just come to you sooner about everything, then none of this would have happened. If it's like, he just feels like every time he turns around, he's making a mistake with everything. It's like, he's even saying, like, Addie should be the one to look after the kids. He rushed to, with the Hex. He feels like he didn't handle things with George right, even though he said, like, nothing would ever come between them, and now it kind of has. And it's just like, for him, he's like, I gotta take a step back. I need to figure something. Like, it's just, like, this is just, like, it's kind of sad because it's just, like, everything's just kind of been spiraling of just, like, things haven't worked out the way he's wanted them to. In fact, he kind of feels like he's messed up in how he feels kind of like he's, like, fumbled everything in his direction. So I'm curious what's going to happen with Nick. Like, what is he going to do? Like, how is he going to try and, like, work through all of this? I don't know. I'm interested to see how that plays out, especially with everything that's happening already. It's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.